Have you ever thought that our life is very similar to a video game? Check it out yourself.
Right after we are born, we start the training. Parents and schools boost our basic skills, while we look at the world with wide open eyes, marveling at how well designed it is. A huge seamless world with no loading transitions between locations. Ideal graphics. Well, unless your vision is just 240 pixels. No FPS drops even with hundreds of people on the map. And complete freedom of choice. Plus an environment you can even interact with.
In other words, the first game besides solitaire that runs for you without lagging. Of course, unless you suffer from epilepsy.
Here you can play as any character you want.
Literally, if you are not happy with Mother Nature's gift, you could simply switch your gender.
But the most important skill we learn is to wear masks. We act one way around our parents, another around our friends, and a whole different way around the girls we like.
Just like that, childhood flies by. You won't even notice, and you are already graduated.
You are taking your first step into a West world and nothing happens. No dots on the radar, no clues in a diary.
And that's when it hits you. The developers really dropped the ball on this one.
Just like in a modern AAA games, they thought of everything, except for the main storyline. The linear games where you were guided by parents and teachers is over, and you'd be lucky if you started this game without any debuffs.
So it turns out you are the only scriptwriter of your own game.
How you manage your life will define how your game unfolds, and the masks you choose to wear will shape how different factions perceive you. Unsophisticated players will turn their lives into a simulator of a salesman, a simulator of an office clerk, an IT specialist, a lawyer, or a simulator of factory worker.
They wear the mask of a hard-working employee and a good family person, and spend their life as gaffers. But here is the catch. Such masks have a tendency to eventually blend with the face.
And the only thing left is retirement, with a consolatory donation from the government. Right up until the final credits, the moment after which you will never be online again.
But these are just spoilers. At the moment, maybe you didn't even step out of shelter. But mark my words, years will pass by before you barely blink.
So you'd better start trying on new masks and figuring out your own way through this game, ideally making some stories to look back on in the end.
Someone focuses on mining of the most important asset.
If you have a lot of money, then you get a luxury life DLC, which is very rare.
Most people won't obtain it even after 30 years of hard work.
With this asset, you can break free from your location, visit different countries, enter locations where other players won't go, and drive cars that are inaccessible to others.
And here you go. Been there, tried that, but what then?
Doing all that didn't lead to a main quest line in real life.
Now it all seems even more pointless to you, because before you didn't know what lay beyond the fog, and now you know, and there are no twists or surprises left.
Doing all that didn't lead to a main quest line in real life. Even Monopoly is not that simple. Money is just a resource, nothing more.
In other words, money is a good stepping stone, but without another platform to land on, you will end up right where you started, and might even break your legs in the process.
Big money, on the other hand, is also an addiction, a temptation, and most importantly, the fear of losing it. The saying "easy come, easy go" is coined by people who know nothing about financial literacy. Even more, this easy go could happen without your fault.
And easy come is more likely to splash in your face, if you know what I mean.
So to win this game called life, you need something more than just money.
The good news is that money often comes with recognition.
Today we have a plethora of social media platforms that give you the opportunity to go viral. If 10 years ago you were considered a freak and only 100 people were laughing at you, today you could still be a freak, but millions of people will watch you.
And I'm not just talking about media presence. This scalability applies to a wide range of industries. To put it simply, if you succeed at what you're doing, recognition naturally follows.
Now it finally starts to resemble the main quest line, doesn't it? But no, let me remind you that after you obtain money and recognition, you will often face boredom, apathy and depression.
And here we are slowly approaching another deception that the developers have prepared for us.
In role-playing games, there is a concept of a non-playable character build. It's when you put all your points into the skills which turned out to be either unnecessary or useless. For example, if you have invested piecemeal everywhere.
I mean, you went over the top but didn't really dive into anything.
A well-balanced setup is good, but in the latter stages of the game, when you face a challenge, none of them will be enough to pass it.
People who dabble a bit now and then have something to say on every topic, but they will never succeed without concentrating on something specific.
If you think you know it all, you really don't.
But no worries, it's possible to fix it. Yeah, you're gonna need to spend some time studying and taking courses, but it's completely possible.
But the worst-case scenario is when you put all your time and effort into an important skill, but after a new update, it's just not that important anymore. By the guidance of your parents, you could have applied to become a lawyer, but by the time you graduate, there is not the same demand for them. You could have become a designer or a software developer, but AI took those jobs. You could have become a journalist, but today a news story is instantly dropped right after the event. And by the time you write an article about it, the news cycle has moved on.
And you can just restart the game.
You have spent thousands of hours in college boosting the right skill, and now your character has side missions, like raising a child, supporting your family, paying rent, etc. So you can just start all over again.
You can see how many professions disappear with just one quest. For example, grocery shopping.
Here is an example of how things have changed in the past 10 years. Today outside was pretty hot, so I decided to take a taxi. To my surprise, it had no driver. The car was managed by artificial intelligence. At the store, I bought some groceries for a week and paid with my phone at the self-checkout.
As a result, I didn't interact with any human beings to get my stuff, not even a sales assistant. And why would I need to, when my phone carefully listens to what I'm talking about with my friends to offer me targeted advertisement?
We all knew that someday AI would replace us at work, but we expected robots to do service work. No one thought that the first to go would be those in creative jobs, and that it would happen so quickly. But that is what progress is like. That is the order of things. The mouse has no hate for the cat that's hunting it. Your top-of-the-line setup is only effective for today. Tomorrow a random event occurs and your horse riding skills becomes irrelevant, because now everyone is driving cars.
So if our parents were lucky to secure a good job and spend their entire life at their spawn location, alas, it's not a viable strategy today.
So only two options remain. Your game is either boring or very difficult to play due to an unbalanced character setup. The boring life just like a game we speedrun. We skip dialogues and cutscenes, we multitask, and if possible, speed up our actions times 2. We put on the mask of a person who is stuck in their routine. You drink once a week to relax and believe that life is supposed to be like this, with a vacation once a year and obligations to pay off your credit.
In short, we live on autopilot right until the end credits.
And the worst part is that this game has amazing quests, but by the time most players figure out how to play or gather enough resources, half the game is already over.
Some will argue, but playing the game all over again is not really possible. Or you're gonna play as a completely different character. Either way, you won't remember. That's why many people end up watching Let's Plays instead.
We watch Elon Musk or Ye to learn their style of play, and we try to emulate them. In doing so, we hope to learn which buttons they push to perform that fatality, and which ones we should avoid, so we don't end up like Lil Peep.
But alas, everyone's storyline is unique. Let's Plays won't fix your problems. Or perhaps they will just demonstrate to you that this game is beatable.
Yeah, now you know that you should never give up. Any hard level and any boss could be defeated. But didn't you know that before? Where is a specific guide for your life and not someone else's?
So, not many options left, frankly just one: to change rapidly in accordance to circumstances. If your profession is in demand now, it doesn't mean it will be the same next year.
Imagine the faces of thousands of people who just got hired by Zuckerberg into the metaverse department, thinking that now they will make history. And in a year they were all fired. The same goes for those who invested in NFTs, and the same applies to any field. Cinematic techniques and plot twists can age poorly. Literature and video games are evolving too. But most importantly, the attention span of the average person that you could capture with the most novel idea is constantly shrinking. Genres are blending. Check out new films and series on IMDb. Tragedy, comedy, drama, thriller, detective, biblical, and anime. The same goes for YouTube.
It is scary to change, but it's even scarier not to change and reach the point where it's too late.
And here is the question: why do I do what I do? Who will I be if I remove my current mask? For instance, I put everything into making changes. Therefore, choosing from all genres, my life is a race where I have to outpace who I was yesterday. But how do I do that?
Well, the only solution I see is to push beyond your current boundaries. You should rebrand yourself before it's too late.
It's too late to brush your teeth for the first time before visiting a dentist, or to quit smoking when you are diagnosed with lung cancer. Some will say that tough times create strong people, and it even sounds rational. But it's just not true.
Times are not tough, they are just different. We have to deal with problems which would have left our ancestors stunned.
Back then, you would read a newspaper on the way to work, and that was it. You had no other sources of information. Today, plenty of apps and push notifications distract us every minute. Back then, there was a concept of stability. Today, this word can only be perceived with irony. Scams are everywhere, and they taught us to trust no one. We are criticized for spending too much on all sorts of stuff just to get a quick dopamine fix. But previous generations didn't spend as much simply because it was not as easily accessible. Today everything is in the palm of your hand, just a tap away with your finger. Short on money? Not a problem. You can even buy panties on an installment plan.
But will you be satisfied with life where you need credit for underwear? Perhaps in that case you don't need much, but the higher you climb, the harder it is to stay up there.
Back in the 80s, rock bands could lose themselves in a drug binge and tell their manager to fuck off, and later wake up in the rehab after an overdose, take LSD, wash it down with ayahuasca, and announce a world tour. All the tabloids would write about it, they would put them on the cover of magazines, and the fans would be screaming in joy.
Today, disappearing out of people's feed for just a few months can easily ruin your career.
Stars come and go in a flash.
Moreover, even if your work stays solid, folks will lose interest if they don't see you stepping it up all the time.
The older generation might say, "You have so many opportunities, it was different back in our day."
And they won't lie.
Today you can order a taxi anywhere. Buy anything from anywhere, it will be delivered to your door. Create a YouTube channel and talk about anything. Get a passport and fly wherever you want.
But this freedom once again shows how miserable you are, because you simply can't afford what the 21st century has to offer.
As you can imagine, this fact could just make you want to alt F for the game. Because sometimes it's better not to see how everyone's having fun on the roller coaster if you can't join them.
Even though these arguments may sound like we are complaining because we're just having it too good, there is plenty of evidence that all this ultimately causes depression and other disorders. So, to put it simply, all these comforts we have today have made this game easier for us. But on the other hand, we have boxed ourselves into a corner because we misuse them.
And at the end of the day, we think we've got a decent ending. Well, at least not the worst.
You didn't end up in a ditch and didn't die from an overdose. So what, you didn't become who you always dreamed of? Those dreams were kinda silly anyway. Okay, let's take a step back here. Imagine you don't relate to anything I've just said.
You wanted a job, you got it, and you're enjoying it.
No existential dilemmas for you. Let the creative individuals invent problems and then suffer from them. But here is another catch: if you have found your place and everything is going well, you will inevitably face burnout.
The golden mean will soon turn into a golden cage for you. Yeah, for some, life is a constant Dark Souls game, where a homeless guy sneezes at you and you die from poisoning. But even Dark Souls eventually becomes routine, where you're just slaying bosses.
Many people mistakenly believe they are burning out because they don't like their job, thinking it's not their call and they are meant for something else. But that's not the case here.
You burn out even when you become proficient at something, but you don't see immediate results from your efforts. Your field of work matters little in this regard.
But let's assume you are immune to burnout.
Even so, staying in the golden mean won't work, especially because nowadays a year counts for 2. Things that you enjoy doing today and that earns you money, tomorrow might be done by AI.
To win this life, you can't just always take the easy path. You need to do more than what's expected from you. And when you find something that works, remember, it won't work forever.
Sooner or later, you will have to change everything. Of course, if you have 5 kids, living for a monastery and giving away all your money is also a dramatic plot twist. But your teammates, aka your wife and kids, might not appreciate it. Get into sports, focus on your career, do what you have postponed to do, and eliminate what's holding you back. Rebranding your life is something that you can do right now, because there won't be a second playthrough.
So why not play this life as you did in childhood, with no responsibilities and an entire summer ahead?
No one knows how much time you have left before you are kicked from the server.
That's why I'm taking off this mask and moving to the next level. What awaits me? I don't know. No one knows or can tell. But isn't that why we hate spoilers?